So welcome to the Luminary Pro Aesthetic Advantage. So this video is really designed to show you the visual differences between permanent lighting systems, how they look on a home, how the color wash hits the siding, how smooth or patchy the glow is, and how the overall aesthetic finish looks. And so the first thing that I want to cover is I am not an engineer, I am not a lighting scientist, I'm just someone who pays very close attention to how lights actually look on houses in the real world. So everything from this video comes from observation, experience, and comparing systems in real neighborhoods. And before we jump into those visuals, I just want to touch on a few lighting basics. Nothing overly technical, just the simple things that actually affect the appearance. So this is your color wash, your beam angles, RGB versus RGBW, brightness, spacing, and lastly, track design. Now, these are the factors that are going to change what you're going to actually see from the street and how it's going to impact the overall look and feel of your lights. Now, by the end, you will be able to instantly tell the difference between cheaper or DIY looking systems compared to clean architectural grade lighting systems just by the way they look as you're driving or walking past them. So the first thing that I want to touch on here is your lumens and your lux value. A lot of people think that the only thing that matters are the lumens. However, your lux value is actually going to be probably the most important factor because your lux is actually a function of your lumens. So lumens equal your total light output. So this is the brightness that is actually coming out of the bulb. Think of lumens more as the horsepower of the light, so more lumens equal more total light being emitted. But lumens alone don't determine exactly how good the color wash is. Why? Because you can have a super bright bulb, so high lumens, but that still doesn't wash the wall well if the beam of the angle is too narrow or if it's poorly diffused based on the engineering of the actual light. Whereas lux is light hitting a surface, how much light lands on the actual house itself. So lux is really the MVP when it comes to color wash, and lux measures exactly how much of that light actually lands on your siding, your stone, your soffits. And so 1 lux equals 1 lumen per square meter of hitting the surface. I don't want to get too technical, but I just want to give you guys some background information on this. And so if the lux is too low, the color wash looks really weak, patchy, or it's barely visible. Now, if the lux is higher, the wall goes rich and evenly. And so I'm giving you guys two different examples here. As you can see in the photo with the X on it, this is not our light system. This is 6-inch space lighting. And what you can see here is this is blue. You can barely tell, but it's blue and it's green. They're kind of just meshing together onto the property. And you can see that they're really only emitting light in the first couple meters. I'm also taking this from a cell phone camera, which is overexposing the image more than it should. So it's actually showing more light than what you can actually see on the eye. So what you can see here is the actual color wash is really weak. It's simply brightening the area. From the actual human eye, mostly what you can see is the traditional Christmas light look with these lights. And so what I mean by that is you're only seeing the light that is emitting exactly from the bulb itself. It's not actually going a lot onto the property itself. Whereas if you look at the picture with the check mark on it, those are our lights. You can see that this is emitting color all the way down the driveway. And this is really creating that nice glow that's even, it's rich, and it looks really, really strong if you're trying to achieve one particular color on the property. And so lumens, like I said, they affect how rich the color is, how visible the color is from a distance, as well as how well the animations pop. So I'm going to play two videos for you here. So this is a low lumen system. And so you can see that this is animated and you can see how those animations are moving. It's delayed and I'm going to explain more about what causes that delay here, but it's not super rich. These are only 20 to 40 lumens per light. And there's a lot of shadows with these, but we'll go into a little bit more detail here in a second. Now let's compare this to 110 lumens per light. Look at those smooth animations and how that color's really popping. Huge difference between the two. Do you want to watch these animations again? They're slow. They almost look like they're pixelated or delayed, and it's not super even. Now let's watch this one again. Smooth transitions. Those animations are really popping. Okay. So lux really affects how deep the color penetrates the surface, how even the wash looks across the walls itself, and how well the house lights up when it's viewed from the street, as well as how light blends bulb to bulb. So this blending factor, if we look at this image, is really, this is a great image because it's showing you the contrast between the two light systems. So with this one, you can see these shadows. I always call these bells of light just because they're kind of in a bell shape. And you can really see those shadows. And then you can see where the light kind of just ends here. We have a lot of shadow. And then maybe you have some over here in the bottom of the property here, but you can kind of see where that light cuts off. Now with this one, the shadows are almost non-existent. It's illuminating this full property here. And there's no, like, look how, you can just look at the difference here. Look at how this driveway is lit up right here, whereas look at how this driveway is lit up. Totally different look and feel between the lights. This one is a cheaper lighting system. These are more of your DIY track lights. Super low lumens. You can almost tell these once you get used to what you're looking for on lights. Exactly what to actually look for. And typically what I look for right away is just those bells of light. That's a pretty much huge giveaway. These ones are I believe these ones actually aren't in a track. These ones are just the ones that go up with the sticky tape. However, you can get lights that are similar to this. They look from far away as though they're expensive track lights, but they have a very low lux value, and this is what ends up happening. And we'll go through some more examples as well here, whereas this is a more expensive lighting system with a nice lux value. So color wash equals lumens times the beam angle times distance times reflectivity. That is going to give you your final lux. And so I'm giving you another example with actual colors itself. So again, we see these high contrasting shadows on this lighting system. This is a cheaper lighting system. You can tell that right away. Whereas if we look at the lake photo, what we can see here is that color wash comes all the way down to the point where it's reflecting right into the lake there. You can see that that color wash goes all the way down the property, and it is just illuminating the whole area, washing it in that color. Whereas with the other one here, you're just seeing those bells of light. The color comes down, I don't know, let's say 1.5 or 1 meter or a couple feet down. It's not illuminating the whole property. It's really dark below this window. It's not giving you a lot of light. And again, I'm shooting this with a cell phone camera, so it is overexposing a lot of this as well. So it's not even giving you the true feel that you get from this. Whereas nicely, you can see beside the neighbor's property is, you can see how well that's illuminating. This is a more expensive system again. And so color wash, once again, this is your lumens, beam angle, distance, reflectivity. That's giving you your final lux. You can see in this photo, this is really rich, nice colors that is illuminating the entire property. And you can see this nice warm white is going to match any landscape lighting, any garage lights, anything like that. And this is a really nice lux value. And these are Luminary Pro lights that you're looking at on this property here. Okay, and so let's talk a little bit more about some of these details here. So Luminary Pro lights are small point RGBW LEDs. They're narrow-ish beam angles so that the light is not spraying everywhere. And this has been something that has been studied to make sure that that is the perfect light wash. I know that there's a lot of different distances that you can get, anywhere between 6-inch spacing. Actually, I think you can go as low as 3-inch spacing if you're purchasing something that more has that kind of strip light look to it, all the way up to 12-inch spacing. We do 9-inch spacing, and this is precise based on the way that we have tested the distance between the colors based on our specific light. And so a lot of people get caught up in the distancing. The distancing really matters based on the actual light that you have. And that's why we choose 9-inch spacing. We don't go any closer because that bleeds the colors together too much. We don't go further apart because then we're going to start to see a little bit more shadows, and it's just not quite enough. We have individual diodes. We're not using cheap strip lights. We have 12 segments for each diode, which is pretty unique. A lot of companies are only doing 3. We have 9 different tracks for optimal positioning, and our lights are 110 lumens. So let's talk about some of the alternatives that are out there. And this is most companies that are out there, to be honest with you. We've put a lot of research and development into the perfect lighting system. Our developers are all, not all of them, but most of them are former Google employees. They're developers, they're tech nerds. We have perfected the actual lighting system itself, not only from an app standpoint, but also from the lights as well as the track. It's a whole system that works together. And luckily, our manufacturers own absolutely all of the tech, right from the tracks all the way down to the app, which isn't something that we can say about a lot of our competitors. But I don't want to get too much into that because what we're talking about in this video is mostly about aesthetics. So our competitors, even some of the expensive ones, are RGB only lights. And they'll try and convince you that RGB is okay if you mix the colors together, but we're going to go into real detail on why this matters. And they have wider to narrow beam angles. We've already touched on that, where you see those, as I am calling them, bells of shadows. They have 6, 12, or 9-inch spacing, 1 to 3 segments only, and only one options for track, or they don't do a track at all. And they're anywhere between 25 to 60 lumens. I haven't found a competitor that even comes close to our lumen amount in my market research. But again, I'm not a lighting engineer. I encourage everyone to go out and find more information on what else is out there. So far, I haven't found it. And so you guys can see some visuals on the screen here about what exactly our lights look like. A picture's worth 1,000 words. If you look at the actual light itself, that looks like it has a lot of power going on versus our competitors that just have these kind of cheap looking lights. And then you can see a visual of how they actually look on the roof. This is a light system that doesn't have any tracks. Ours are color matched right into the track. And then we can go into the actual colors itself. One just kind of looks like strip lighting, what you would see on a teenager's bedroom room. And then ours really shows that professional architectural lighting. But we're going to show you more about that. Okay, so let's go into what matters most for a clean color wash. And this is going to get a little bit technical for a second here, but I'll go through it quickly. So your beam angle plus diffusion. A wider beam angle plus good wall reflectivity gives you a richer wash, even with moderate lumens. Number 2 is distance from the surface. The closer the light is to the softer the siding, the stronger the lux equals better wash. So what we see with a lot of our competitors is they're bringing in the actual lights closer to the house so that they can almost try and cheat that better lux value. However, if you have lights that have that nice spread, you don't need to do that. And that way you can still emit light over the entire structure of the property and then some. Now, number 3 is color temperature of the white diode in RGBW. Warm white penetrates the surface differently than cool white, and this is why RGBW is super important, and we're going to get into those details in a second here. Now, your surface material reflectivity is actually super important. However, we have designed our lights in a way that we are going to get that strong lux value no matter what. Now, stone equals lower lux, which means more lumens for rich wash. Siding has medium reflectivity, and stucco means very high reflectivity, which is the best wash. Certain surfaces are not going to allow the light to penetrate them at all if you're going with a cheaper product that has a low lux value. Now, I have 2 pictures on the screen because I really want to show you our lights with the big check mark on them. And so what you can really see is a couple different things. Not only is the color wash going over the property all the way down to the driveway, but we're also noticing that the colors aren't blending together. We have nice gradients between those colors, and there's no lines at all between those transitions. And I use this photo intentionally because we're using high contrasting colors here. We're going from blue right to red, from aqua to a green to a yellow. And look how nice those gradients are and how those colors fade into each other without any lines. Now, if we go into this photo on the bottom with the X on it, this is kind of unfortunate because this is actually an expensive track lighting system, but it has a low lux value and it has lower lumens. And so see what happens in the top corner of this house, how the red and the green and the yellow are blending together, and you're not getting that rich color gradient. Instead, you're getting just harsh lines. Now you can also see you're getting those bells of light, but what's even worse in this scenario here is that those bells of light, the shadows is what I'm referring to, are so uneven that you're getting these weird shadows that are uneven all along the ridge line here. And that's really unfortunate because this is a track lighting system. someone invested a lot of money into this, and this is also 12-inch spacing. This is what happens when you go too far and you don't have the lights to actually maximize that. So these are things that you really want to consider when you're purchasing your light system. And with ours, like I've probably mentioned 1,000 times at this point, we have designed everything in tandem, right from our tracks to the actual lights itself to our app. Everything is working in tandem. It's all under one roof. And that allows us to test everything in market and see how these lights are actually going to interact with different surfaces on the property. And you're going to get that nice luxe value, no matter if you're going from stone or you're going to stucco. You can trust that our product is going to give you that nice, rich luxe value because we've designed our lights to be able to do exactly that. And that's what's really important to us. So too long didn't read. Lumens equal how much light your bulb produces. Lux equals how much of that light actually hits home. Your color wash depends more on lux than lumens. Even though we are the leaders in lumens, I want to stress that that's actually not what's super important. The placement of the beam angle matters more than the raw brightness of the color. If your wash looks too faint, it's not always lumens. It can also be because the beam is too narrow, the lights are too far recessed in the tracks or the way that they're placed on the light. The lux is too low hitting the wall, and the lights don't have RGBW capabilities, which is why your track and RGB capabilities are just as important. And so let's dive into those things here, because RGBW is more than just getting warm white. So the truth about RGB, the common fallacy is that you can just add yellow to the lights to make warm white, but there's actually a lot more to it than that. RGBW isn't just about light warmth, it's about true white, which surprisingly impacts the entire system beyond aesthetics and even goes into how much power consumption is being used and how the transitions work with the animations. So RGB tries to fake white by mixing red, green, and blue. This always ends up looking bluish, pinkish, greenish, or just dull and off. And homeowners notice it immediately. Architectural lighting needs true warm white to actually look like premium lighting, which is why high-end lighting systems, whether it's in your home or your garden or your luxury properties, it's always going to be RGBW. Professional designers are never going to opt for a fluorescent-looking RGB light, as it would immediately cheapen the home and the overall look of the property itself. RGBW has a dedicated white diode so that the whites can be warm, clean, even, and bright without being harsh. And so this is one of the biggest reasons that RGBW looks high-end versus just looking like cheap Christmas lights that you picked up at Home Depot. A picture's worth 1,000 words. Here you can see on the screen that nice, warm, rich, warm white. And you can see these lights are set up, again, because you can change the animations with these lights. You can see that they have one bulb off, one lower light, one bright one lower light, and one off. And so when you choose for something like that, you are going to see a little bit more shadows onto the property itself, simply because that's what you're opting for. This is just a picture of a property that I found. These actually are not our lights, but I wanted to show you guys the stark contrast before being able to get that warm white and just having bright, stark fluorescent lights. And so you're going to notice, and this is really important. So you see how on the far house here, you see the garage light? That garage light is matching that warm white. That's actually what's going to be really important when you're trying to create that proper ambiance, because if you turn your garage lights on or your landscaping lights or anything like that, you actually want to be able to match those colors nicely when you're opting for just the clean architectural lights at night. And so color wash looks way better with RGBW. And this is the part that nobody really understands until they see it. So RGB only systems, they feel thin, they have weak color wash, and they look more like cheap LED strip lights. This is a picture of one of my neighbors that has these actual lights. Now RGBW systems, and this is a photo of our lights on the screen. The next one over. These have deeper color saturation. So you see that there's those purples as well as those oranges. They mix colors more accurately. They produce smoother gradients, which is really important so you don't get those harsh lines. They create that rich architectural glow that homeowners truly want. And the W diode helps boost overall brightness and fill in the spectrum of light. So the colors look more like a high-end stage or building lighting. You can really see the difference between the cheap strip looking lights. These are actually lights. They're not actual strip lights, but they look like them. They're 3-inch spaced DIY sticky lights versus our lights on the screen, you can really see the difference between the two here. And so this is another great example here. So RGB only system, I've used this image already, but you can see that, or as we talked about, that what they're trying to display on the screen here is blue and green lights. We can't really see that. And when we look at our system, this is our lights. Whoops, let's go back. These are our lights here. You can see very clearly we are going from green to white to red. You can clearly see the different colors that we are using. And honestly, this isn't that great of a picture. So you can really see the difference when you're trying to get that nice color wash. And so these are really dimmed right down as well. And that's the nice thing with our lights is that you can actually change the brightness. So you can turn it right down if you want something that's just really subtle on your property. You don't want stark lights. That's one of the nice features of our lights. But again, this is really just to show you the difference in the actual color wash when you bring in RGB. A lot of people think it's just about warm white. It's not. It's actually about colors as well. So warm white is actually the number one most used setting. So a lot of people opt to use these lights as architectural lights throughout the year. And warm white, when it comes to this, when you're year round, when it's not a holiday or it's not game day or it's not Valentine's Day or you're not showing everyone on the block who you're voting for, 90% of homeowners use permanent lights in warm white most nights. If you have RGB, your warm white is always going to look yellow or peachy. You're kind of just off. It cheapens the entire look of the home and it never matches the soffit, street, or landscape lighting. And so I gave you guys an example of a really peach or yellow light. And so this is an example, and a lot of people say you can just add yellow to the color. It's always going to look a little bit off, no matter how hard you try and get that warm white feel. With RGBW, warm white blends in seamlessly with exterior soffits, cans, so those soffit lights or pot lights that you have, garage lighting, landscape lighting, pathway lights. It looks designed, not like it's decorated just for the holidays. And so the bottom picture, this again is our lighting system. And they have chosen to have one bright light, and then I think it's 3 lower ones. So it really has that rich architectural lighting that really blends into their beautiful landscape lights that they have. And so this is something that you can use year round to really highlight some of the structure of your home. You can actually go on with our lights too. Say, for example, they just wanted to highlight some of the stone. They could actually do that. And then say on the brick, for whatever reason, or on the siding areas, they wanted to completely turn it off. You can go in and do that and individually set each individual light if that's something that you want to do, so that you look like, so that it appears that you have a really expensive custom lighting system. And that's the beauty of these. And so the colors just look better and give you more options. So RGB only can look sharp, oversaturated, and cartoony is probably one of the best words that I've heard to describe it. RGB gives you true colors, whatever you're really going after. You're going to get those deeper reds. You're going to get those true greens. You're going to get purples that aren't blue. You're going to get smooth pastels if that's what you're going for. Way richer gradients. Even Christmas lights look more expensive when you're just choosing your Christmas colors. And perfect hex color matching for any color range. And so I'm using an example. What we're looking at on the right is, you can see that it's the exact same house, just to give you guys a better example. So we're using bright colors in one, and then we're using dustier or muted colors in the next. And so if you're looking to get kind of those dusty colors for just architectural lighting, but you want some colors and you don't want it to be crazy, you have that option because you can choose any hex color. Now, if you want those bright colors for whatever reason that night, which honestly, I'm the type of person who likes to have bright colors 90% of the time. I actually have the Luminary Pro logo colors, which I have matched to the perfect hex color, which I can also achieve. And I put the logo up there too, so you can just see exactly how well those are matching. And then the dustier colors, I put the color code there just so that you can get an idea that you have that nice color range. And again, that comes from RGBW. So it's not just about getting that warm white. It's also making sure that you can get a nice array of colors. Now, this part's really important if you like animations and you want colored lighting. Not only can you get softer, less cartoony colors with RGBW, but your animations are actually smoother. So I'm going to play 2 videos for you here. And so here you can see, watch those color transitions. So I always say that it looks pixelated. That's not really the right word, but it's almost like blocky the way that the transitions are. They kind of move and then they just quickly shift to the next one, but there's no nice transitions between them. And so let me play for you here. the nice gradient waves that you can get when you have that RGBW. See how that's just smooth flowing? And with our lights, you can adjust the speed if you want it to go by faster. You can slow it right down if you want something really, really slow. But that really shows you the different animations. And again, I opted to use really blush colors in this. And then you can also do sparkling lights if you want. You're not stuck with just one option. There's an array of options that you can use. Whereas, and you can, again, this kind of shows you like you can slow it right down, different speeds and such. This is on a really slow setting. And again, let's just play this again now that you've seen the difference. See how it's just chunks of light that are just changing? It's not super visually appealing. It's fine for Christmas. It's fine for Halloween. It's fine for the fun things, but it's not great for actual architectural lighting if it's something that you're trying to use year round, which most people that purchase our lights are looking to get that nice, rich architectural lighting. I live in an area that these lights are very, very popular. They're probably on every third house at this point and growing. And everyone's using them year round, especially in the summertime for that nice patio ambiance. And yeah, so let's move on. Okay, so here's a few technical things. So lower wattage is needed for better results. Because RGBW systems can rely on the white diode to fill brightness, you don't need to overdrive the RGB diodes. This means with our lights, you get lower energy consumption, less heat and lights on the outside of your house, something you really want to think about. Longer LED lifespan, so they last longer, and that's why we have that 50,000-hour warranty. Our last video says that we only have 5-year warranty. We have recently changed this, just to note. And better lux on walls without overpowering brightness. It's more efficient and it just looks better. Tons more usable animations and scenes. With RGB only, animations are limited because the color space is limited. RGB gives you those smoother transitions that I just showed you. Softer fades, realistic candlelight effects, sunrise and sunset effects, true warm white strobes, multi-layer gradients, and animations don't just look like chunky Christmas lights. They look like high-end architectural lighting, like you spent tens of thousands of dollars on your system. So RGBW is what high-end lighting professionals use. Any professional architectural lighting system, whether it's landscape, soffit, uh, I'm not going to try and say that word. Commercial building lighting uses RGBW and never RGB. You will never see a light designer ever using RGB colors. Now, RGB is what Amazon lights use, but funny enough, a lot of light systems that are out there nowadays that are charging premiums are using RGB, which is crazy to me. And RGBW is what actual lighting designers use. And now that you know all of this, you're probably going to be driving around in your neighborhood. You're going to start looking at the lights and you're going to see what feels expensive, what feels luxurious, what just is generally more visually appealing. And so look at this example. So if the question that I always ask is, do you want stark, high shadow, low color wash with only cartoony color options or professional architectural lighting? We don't want that contrast. We don't want those bells of light, as I call them. It's probably a way better, more scientific word. But this is what we are avoiding, is those stark, contrasting lines. We want something that's rich, that brightens up the property. And if you don't want it that stark, you can always set your timer so that you can lower these right down. And then in the morning, you can actually have them come right again, whatever you really want to do. But this picture is, these comparisons are really great because it shows the difference between the lights here. And so lastly, I just want to talk to you guys about tracks. Tracks actually seem like they're unimportant, but the wrong track or no track can actually ruin your entire investment. Tracks keep the lights straight, evenly spaced, and pointed correctly to distribute lux and lumens properly. And that's just the aesthetic side. Noise and stability issues with bad tracks. If you've ever had loose siding or loose shingles, you know how annoying that the whistling, the rubbing, the banging can sound in the wind, especially if you're somebody like me who's a light sleeper. The same thing happens when you use poor quality lighting products because the PVC can rub in your soffit, or it can create that whistling sound if it's not attached directly, and cheap aluminum tracks screwed directly into the house can cause unsettling noise and frustration. So permanent lights can become temporary lights if you can't stand noise. And if you're anything like me, if you're hungry, you're concentrating, or you're just breathing, that will drive you absolutely mad. And so why tracks matter? Luminary Pro tracks are better because We have custom color match tracks that are friction fit. This is hard to say. Friction fit on one end and they're screwed in on the other. The friction fit prevents moisture gaps, movement, and 100% eradicates noise because it is friction fit in there, which means it slides in. No gap. There's no way there can be a gap. So it completely eliminates sound noises, and the track profile and the shape matter. And we have 9 different track options. And the reason why is because building codes differ across states. Roof lines create different angles or distances that actually affect that light distribution. That's your lux factor that we all know about now. And some areas need a different profile to keep that wash consistent. And most companies that are out there only have 1 track option. We have 9. When we do your actual color matching, we decide what type of tracks that you also need. Most houses can just go with our standard tracks, but we want to make sure we have different options again, because we have engineers making sure that our light distribution is perfect on any property. And so this is a real example of uneven light distribution. I'm going to apologize to you guys because I'm using my cell phone camera for this, so it is not the greatest video, but I'm just going to play this for you here. So one thing that I want to note is, so we're looking at this property here, and I wish this wasn't such a bad video. Okay, I'm going to pause it there. Notice how you can see all the lights here, and then here you can't actually see any of the lights. And so one of the problems with that is that this is, I don't know how many feet this would be. Standard garage. This is probably, I don't know, let's just say it's 15 feet for argument's sake. Probably somebody smarter than me that's going to argue with that. That is feet that they paid for to have lights, even on the sides here. They paid for all those lights. Now, my phone is overexposing this image, just because that's what phones do. And so when you're actually looking at this property, this is all cased in shadow. And these lights you can see really nicely. These ones are encased in a shadow, which means they look like they have 2 different lighting systems on this house. And the reason why is because this house has kind of a funny ridge that comes down here. Just the shape of the roof line. And the lights are completely covered because of this harsh angle. So here we just have a normal angle. I'm using really untechnical terms, which have a normal angle coming down. You can see all the lights. Here we have this harsh angle that's coming down over top of the actual garage line. And so what that is doing is it's actually burying the lights behind this ridge. So you can't see them at all. And they're really losing their lux factor because you can't see them. And the human eye notices that right away. So it looks very uneven. I'm going to go into this in a little bit more detail. I'm getting closer to the property again. So as you start to come closer, you can see just a couple of them just sticking out here. But it's really killing the whole factor of the light. And so what we would do is we'd actually put a different profile track on there. And the reason why we would do that is so that you can actually see the lights. Again, this is horrible because it's a cell phone camera, but so that you could actually see the tops of the lights everywhere so that it looks like they have the identical lighting system. And so our process to solve this is during your color scan, we don't just match the color software, we also check for any roofline anomalies. This allows us to check that the track profile is correct to ensure that you get maximum light distribution, even color wash, and 0 dark spots. And so that concludes our topic of Luminary Pro and the aesthetic advantage. And now as you guys are driving around and looking at different light systems, hopefully you guys can see the difference between your Lux, your Lumens, different tracks, as well as the RGBW advantage. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that this helps you make a decision on the lighting system that you're choosing. And I hope that all of this information was super helpful. And we look forward to helping you light up your life with Luminary Pro.